Good afternoon and welcome to the Demystifying DoD Mobility panel. On behalf of NetApp, the sponsor for the Delivering Capabilities Theater, it's my privilege to introduce this afternoon's distinguished panelists. I'm Don Zimmerman, the account manager for NetApp to Fourth Estate agencies. Our moderator for today is Mr. Mark Long. He is the Systems Engineering Branch Chief for DISA's DoD Mobility Program Office. He's responsible for all aspects of mobility systems engineering support, including engineering, information assurance, cybersecurity, test and eval, architecture, and process. Mr. Long supports the planning, resourcing, and acquisition of commercial capabilities for classified and unclassified mobility solutions as a DISA enterprise service. Prior to this position, he served as the Systems Engineering Branch Chief for GCCS, Global Command and Control Systems J. He's a retired Air Force communications officer whose 20 years of service include 4 years of direct presidential support with the White House Communications Agency and multiple in-theater deployments supporting Operation Southern Watch, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. Mr. Long spent much of his Air Force career supporting air operations centers. He earned a bachelor's in computer science and computer and information science and a master's in management from Troy University. Mr. Long is a program management professional PMP, DAWIA Systems Planning, Research, Development, and Engineering Level 3, and a Program Management Level 3 certified. To my right is the person who is standing in for Mr. Berrios, who could not join us today. He's Mr. Greg Yost, who's the Chief Engineer for DoD Mobility. He's been at DISA for 19 years. He's been working mobility for DISA since its beginnings, over 15 years, which he reminded me may have even predated the iPhone.
It did.
Next to him is Mr. Eugene Kim, who's the Technical Mobility Analyst for DISA. He holds a BS in Computer Science and Psychology with a minor in Entrepreneurship and Management from Johns Hopkins in 2004, Masters of Business Administration from Smartly in 2017, and in 2021, he expects to complete a liberal arts, it's a long degree. A liberal arts and information management system with certificates in cyber security and web technologies from the Harvard Extension School in just a couple years. He currently serves as the application management lead for the DISA Mobility PMO with 5 years of mobile application experience. Previously, he worked for the U.S. Department of Education and U.S. Bureau of Census, accumulating 15 years of experience in building and deploying applications for the federal government. Next we have Major Nelson Lee, U.S. Army. Major Lee is the project manager for the Mobility PMO at DISA, where he's leading up the DMCCS Android Data at Rest, or DAR solution. Major Lee entered the Army following his graduation from the University of Maryland in 2002. He went on to Johns Hopkins and earned a Master of Science in Systems Engineering in 2013. Major Lee has been in the IT industry for over 18 years, supporting various government entities like the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. Intelligence Community, as well as major corporations, including AT&T, IBM, AWS, and General Dynamics, in various roles to include software development, systems administration, network engineering, systems engineering, security engineer, solution architect, and technical management. Major Lee holds several certifications to include the Certified Information Security System Security Professional, CISSP, the Certified Ethical Hacker, the Certified Penetration Tester, and Splunk Certified Architect. In addition to his PM duties, Major Lee is the detachment commander for the DISA Army Reserve Element. Major Lee has served in various previous roles in the NetOps office as a NetOps officer for the 354th Civil Affairs Brigade and the 29th Infantry Division. Next we have Mr. Ethan Miller. who is the ISSO for DISA. He earned his bachelor's degree from Michigan State in 2014. After graduating from the Army Signal Corps Officers Basic Course and attained several IT certifications while in attendance of the course. He enlisted and served in the Michigan Army National Guard from 2011 to 14. He was commissioned into the Army Reserve as a signal officer in 2014. He served on the ADOS from 2015 to 2018 and with AMCOM and DISA. He is still serving in the Army Reserve as a first lieutenant. He worked as a contractor for DISA on the Global Service Desk, both at Fort Meade and Maxwell Air Force Base from 2014 to 2015. He was accepted into active duty assignment with AMCOM at Letterkenny Army Depot, where he served as a system engineer developer for their automated warehouse. He was ISSO, and for a brief time as the installation operations officer from 2015 to 17. He accepted another active duty assignment with DISA in the Mobility PMO, where he served as product manager for Purebred, MDS, Email Plus from 2017 to 18, and returned to regular reserve duty after accepting a civilian position with DISA at the ISSO for the Mobility PMO. Finally, we have Mr. Al Smith. Mr. Smith is the DoD Mobility Unclassified Capability Program Manager. He joined the U.S. Army in 1984 and earned an associate's degree in Comp Sci from Cameron University in 1995, a bachelor's in business management at Touro University in 2005. He's a DAWIA Level 3, Life Cycle Logistics in 2010, and U.S. Army Acquisition Corps in 2011. After 20 years in the U.S. Army, Al Smith retired as a Senior Automotive Maintenance Warrant Officer in 2004. He worked as the Assistant Program Manager at Aberdeen Test Support Services, Jacobs Engineering from 2004 to 2008, the ILS Evaluator at Army Evaluation Center, Army Test and Evaluation Command from 2008 to 11, the ILS Manager, PM Joint Battle Command Platform, or Blue Force Tracker, PEO C3T from 11 to 14, Product Support Manager, Mobility PMO, and at DISA, for DISA from 2014 to 17. He was the Product Support Manager, the PDM Tactical Mission Command, PEO C3T from 2017 to 18, and currently works at DISA as the DMUC Program Manager, providing support to mobility and PMO. Please join me in welcoming these distinguished panelists.
Good morning. I don't think any of us realized that our bios were going to be read, so I didn't realize all the credentials my peers have here, so I think we're in good hands. I'm also supposed to mention that this session qualifies for continuous education credits, and there's a scanner at the back, so Zach, I believe, maybe? Yep, Zach is back there, so either on your way out or whatever, if you're looking for those credits, have your badge scanned. So Demystifying Mobility. So it's an interesting title, I thought. And I really came up with a way to cut this brief really short. We could say mobility equals increased information sharing. And really, there you go. So thank you for your time this morning. No, obviously we have a bit of a brief for you, and we have subject matter experts from kind of an interesting cross-section of our program. I won't reintroduce them, but I think everything is covered here. I'm the lead for systems engineering for mobility, and I'd like to start by saying that DISA, as an agency supporting IT for all of DoD, believes that mobility is a commodity IT service. So just like email and network services, mobility falls right in those same categories. However, email and networks of NIPRNet and CIPRNet have been established for quite a while. There's probably not a whole lot of new user requirements. I'm sure there are some, but mobility is quite a bit different in comparison to those. It's fairly new as a commodity item being thought of that way. And in addition to that, there are user expectations based on probably all of us having our own personal mobile phones. So how this should work, everybody's a subject matter expert. So that creates kind of a challenging spot for us to be in, to meet those expectations. And it's evolving so fast and changing so fast. It makes it an exciting place to work, and I'm sure my partners would agree here. So I will just get us started with an overview of our program, kind of what we do and why we are DoD Mobility Program Office. And then we're going to cut to a couple of different topics. One is how we support mission partners. We have some examples of things that we've done over the past couple of years, specifically in addition to capabilities that we offer, some actions that we've done to step up. And then we're going to move to what's next, and we'll talk about kind of the future and where we're headed with DoD Mobility. And then at that point, we'll wrap it up, and you'll have opportunity for questions at the end. So the Mobility Program Office in 2013 was established based on DoD CIO's memorandum for, it was a commercial mobile device implementation plan that was written. And that tasked DISA to stand up this enterprise mobile program office. There were quite a few taskers, subtaskers in that, but basically it was to create and establish an unclassified enterprise mobile capability and a classified mobile capability, and be the authoritative source for all DoD mobility when it comes to policy and guidance, applications development, cybersecurity for mobility, all of those types of things. So that's why this program office exists, and that's what we're chartered to do. We do have things that probably we're most known for, and that is our unclassified mobile capability. So DMUC or DMUC. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So Mr. Al Smith is actually the PM for DMUC, and he's here today. And then we have these classified mobile capability offerings. We have secret and we have TS. And we'll talk about each of those as well, and how CSFC, or Commercial Solutions for Classified, is something that we are intimately familiar with by developing these commercial mobile capabilities to work in a classified environment. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn this over. This slide talks about mission partner support and what we're doing with DMUC, and Al Smith is the lead for DMUC. So Al, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Yep. Hey, so just a quick question. So how many of you in the audience, how many know what DMUC is? How many have a device? Okay. How many are iOS? Apple? How many Android? Okay.
How many devices?
Oh. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what DMUC is and kind of what we're not, right? So what was interesting, you heard my bio, right? Did you hear anything IT or mobile in it, right? You know, anybody who knows tanks, M1s, Bradleys, Paladins, I'll talk to you after that because that's still exciting. But what I find interesting is the mobile device world, right, is much like the automotive world, right? Especially if you love circuits, pneumatics, hydraulics, troubleshooting things like that. There's a lot of comparables, and a lot of us in this office were car enthusiasts as well, and so we relate a lot to the car world. Nevertheless, so we're about 140,000 users worldwide. Right now we're sitting at about 147 countries. Sometimes that's a little amazing to us, some of the countries that our devices are in. And they may be in the onesies and twosies. Predominantly, obviously, we're CONUS-based. We have a strong presence in Korea, and then obviously over in Europe. one thing that I kind of found sitting with the Ask the PM session yesterday is there's kind of a misconception about what we bring. We had folks coming to us asking, can they buy their carrier service from us? Do we provide 4G or LTE type networks in a tactical situation? What kind of devices are allowed? And so the neat thing with us is we fundamentally, in a nutshell, we provide an enterprise managed service. And so one of the things we allow, and one of the things, the flexibility that DMUC provides is customers get to choose from a supported products list for their devices, and they also get to choose their carrier service. Why is that important? Because what may work here may not work downrange, whether you're in Germany or Korea. And so, along with being in 147 countries, we're probably have DMUC devices on over 60 different telecoms. So that's unique in itself. Another thing that's kind of interesting with DMUC, if you think about this, and I don't know how many of you have history with DISA, right, is we rely on the internet. You're only as good with your DMUC device as the cellular connectivity that you have. One unique thing with, a lot of times when I came to DISA and learned about a lot of what we provide, it's stuff buried into the ground or things you can't see. We're a unique PM in that we're in the hands of the customer, right? And we provide on that commercial infrastructure for the product to communicate. Coming to DMUC, mission partners provide their own Tier 1 service. Like I said, they get to select their devices, their carrier plan. We provide a 24/7 Tier 2 and 3. Obviously, we host an application store. As we get into some of the octagons there on the right, I'll have Eugene, who is our app vetting lead, talk a little bit more about that. But both for our Android and iOS environments, we have commercially available apps. If you kind of go back 3 or 4 years, obviously to the inception of DMUC, one requirement that we got and were hounded on day in and day out is a derived credential solution. I need to be able to read encrypted or decrypt emails on my phone or send encrypted emails. And so through that evolution, if those of you, anybody familiar with the SoftCert program, about 3 years ago, very labor intensive, not the ideal solution, but kind of gave the capability. So a couple of years ago when DISA rolled out Purebred, we adopted Purebred as our derived credential solution, and obviously made that available to our customers who desire that capability. And as many of you may know, depending on what part of the country or world you're in, your TTP may require you to send everything in an encrypted mode. And so we probably today have around 70,000 of our 140,000 using Purebred in some manner. Another stat, if you find statistics interesting, again, I alluded to the customer chooses their device. For whatever reason, the numbers kind of show right now, about 96% of our DMUC population is iOS, and the rest is Android. Android devices currently are the Galaxy flagship, and obviously from an iOS perspective, we support all the phones and to include their tablets.
So Al, on that, I think it's an important point to make that people select which phone they want to order from their organizations. So we're not telling people which phone to use. There's an approved list, right? And it just so happens that by popular demand, it's iOS is in the lead.
So. Yep, absolutely correct. And as long as we've been out there, we still get calls daily. I received one yesterday from an agency, asking how do they get carrier service for their folks downrange, and we have to politely tell them we don't provide cellular service. We provide the management of your devices. One thing I want to hit on, and I know Ethan will go a little more in depth in, and something I've kind of really taken to heart to make sure I publicize a lot more, is what I kind of call the invisible benefit of DMUC, and that's cybersecurity. We maintain the infrastructure for our MDM and as well as our mobility gateways, but we also maintain the ATO, which is a arduous process, which takes the team lots of effort. And as many of you know, in this world, things change by the hour, not necessarily by the day. The latest one we got was, the WhatsApp. And so everything that happens in the commercial sector directly impacts us and our user base, and we have to act accordingly. Obviously, with our devices, one of the key things we do is we provide email, right? And so you kind of see our bullet on there. We like to be more than just email. We're really good at delivering your email, but we kind of want to go on to what's next. And that's hosting applications, whether they're business type productivity stuff or operational in nature. I want to hit on real quick, you'll see over there with the last fall, with the hurricane down in North and South Carolina, we were notified, just like we are many times, with the urgent request, and we were able to turn around and get some apps deployed to assist some units down there with the recovery actions. And some of it's as simple as I need to use my phone to do convoy preparation and know where obstacles are. And what's unique about that is there's many use cases we really don't know what the customer is going to use the phone for. Another one with the Air Force, as many organizations, it's easy to say and put on a brief, but moving things over to a mobile application type of architecture is difficult. And so we're supporting the Air Force's, what they call their Bryce maintenance app, and that's basically automating maintenance functions and putting it on a application. And while it sounds easy, there was a lot of work done by Eugene and his team to vet this thing. Eugene, if you will, just talk a minute just about the application, the vetting process, which I know is one of your near and dear to your heart.
Sure. So, yeah, within the team, I am known as the apps guy. If you're working with a capability that you'd like to get onto our platforms, I'm usually involved in one way or another, from development to the vetting to the deployment. I've got a team that we work on all those different mission spaces. And so, like Al said, so we put email on the phones, but so what, right? If you've got a phone in your pocket, that's not really what you care about. Sure, you get a phone call and a text here and there and emails, but what you really want are those capabilities that come from the applications, those services that provide you all the information that you need. And so we were really able to take a look at that mission space of telling the difference between applications that process information that needs to be more protected versus information that needs to be shared, right? And so we were able to utilize our differentiation of a personal side of the device versus the enterprise side of the device, a managed versus unmanaged, as it is called out there. And for some of those applications that don't really need to be as protected, we were able to convince our authorizing official and approval processes that we could use faster, more automated means to get there. And that's how we were able to deliver these applications, such as when the hurricane relief efforts, they need an application to communicate and share information. They can do that because it doesn't need to be protected at the same level as something that needs to be signed and encrypted in an email, for example, right? So that's not to say that we're not looking at that. We're very engaged with other PMs, especially within DISA, who are looking at capabilities for protected communications. We're actually looking at a really big year this year as we work with the MilDrive PM, the DCS PM, the GVS PM, and they're working on capabilities. And one thing that we want to be sure that people understand out there is, yes, we provide you the DMUC devices and the other classified capabilities, but when it comes to the actual services, the other DISA services that you might come to expect within that mobile endpoint platform, we don't go out there and code all those capabilities. We validate and verify the security, my team specifically, that those capabilities can be deployed and properly protect the data that they're processing. But it's up to those PMs, and that's why we're working closely with them. Like I said, DCS should have a chat capability out very soon, and you'll be able to have presence and be able to chat across GFE, both mobile and desktop. So someone in the office can get on their Swift and chat with someone who has a DMUC device. They can see if they're online and get a quick text out there. And that can be at the FOUO level, right? Where we don't have to depend on other chat capabilities and the tenuous security that may be providing. We're talking about DoD backed security at this point. So we're really excited about that. We're really excited about Mill Drive and being able to have the content there. And like I said, there's GVS, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple. I work with a lot of different PMs and a lot of different applications, but yeah, so that's what we're out there doing now.
So real quick, Eugene, can you explain managed versus unmanaged apps? What's that mean?
So for those of you who don't, and honestly, there's a lot of us who gripe about the fact that unmanaged and managed sound so cold. But really what it comes down to, like I said, is the difference between personal and enterprise. Managed just means that the information that application processes, transmits, stores needs to be protected. And in a worst case scenario, we need to have the controls to be able to remove that from the device if it has been compromised in some way. And so anything else is unmanaged. If you've got Twitter on there and you're logging in and looking at Twitter feeds or what have you, and we have some of those kinds of applications that you might look at and say, well, why is this on a GFE? There are many different use cases all across the DoD. Something like Twitter would be asked for from a public affairs office. They want to be able to have all those social media inlets on their devices, see how it looks on the government devices. So again, managed just means that we need to protect it and we need to have controls over it so we can pull it off the device or whatever other compliance actions we may deem necessary.
Yeah, that got me deep into thought. You know, one of the things that we find, just kind of sharing some information with us, we get a lot of people that come to us and want to host their app, you know, in our app store. And what we found in the past is, and sometimes we have to be careful, right? Because we don't develop apps. But a lot of times folks, and especially working with Eugene, who I kind of, when I'm out briefing the product, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, we're looked at it, and our team has a lot of great expertise as one of the de facto standards for app vetting, right? We kind of understand, we know how to do it. We understand the difference between vetting an app that's sitting in an unmanaged space on the phone, or uncontainerized, if you will, or sitting in a containerized space. And it ultimately comes down to what it takes to get this app approved through our authorizing official so we can actually host it in the store. And what we'll see is sometimes just not good business practices used when developing apps, going out and grabbing public libraries, if you will. Kind of the other thing, and for those of you that are in the government and have a government-issued laptop, you know, you can fundamentally do anything you want with that, right? You can probably go out and buy software, get to the internet, install whatever you want.
I guess you're being sarcastic.
I guess my sarcasm isn't bleeding over. But what I'm kind of relating to is people have an expectation, and I don't disagree with them, that their mobile phone is a lot more flexible when connected basically as an endpoint to the nipper, right? It's the same way your laptop is connected to it, but the expectation is I have all these apps available to me. I don't know what the heck they're doing in some instances, but I want them. And so we're kind of charted with making sure that, you know, everything we do, and sometimes we're not as fast to react to it, as everything we do protecting the DoD, or the Department of Defense Information Network, is foremost and up front, you know, our priority. I want to real quick, because I know we're talking a little, Ethan, and talk a little bit about MDS, our mobile digital signature app. Ethan was the lead action officer on that amongst all his other jobs that he does, getting this out there. And this is a big deal, right? So as Purebred becomes the adopted drive credential for DMUC, what we see now is app developers using Purebred. And so, you know, we in the Department of Defense love PDF forms, right? We can't get away from them. And that's just part of our world. Doesn't matter really what service or agency you're in. And so we had no way to, from a mobile perspective, sign PDF forms. And so we kind of created internally our own little requirement and went and had a app developed called Mobile Digital Signature.
And really, mobile digital signature is the way to go forward as the DoD moves to a more mobile workforce, to be truly mobile, to be able to react. I mean, commanders in the field, for example, they have admin work that needs to be done, but they also have to accomplish the mission, right? What can't they do? They can't sign leave forms, they can't sign passes, they can't sign memos that need to be done. So without that admin portion, commanders are kind of held back, right? So MDS gives these commanders the opportunity to sign and be truly mobile and do things that they otherwise can't do. Infantry officers, they're always in the field. They need capability like this. So we took it upon ourselves to make it happen, and we made it happen relatively quick. There are some flaws with moving something out quick. Everything is continuously improving, and again, it's a capability that did not exist prior to MDS, and it's just a marvel how mobile we can get now. And Purebred led the way with that. We're just going to continue improving.
So real quick, can we touch on mobile endpoint protection, and then we do need to move on to DMCC.
So of course, I know Al hit on mobile endpoints over and over again, right? Cybersecurity is key, right? So one thing about an endpoint protection, computers, they have HBSS, they have Forescout. They have different products to actually protect the endpoint, right? What do mobile devices have? They have an MDM. The MDM is limited to what it can do. It can tell if a device has been rooted. It can tell if it's been jailbroken. Yeah. Mobile threat detection, mobile endpoint protection, it provides that last capability. It can search for and find malicious apps. It can tell you, take more action, especially if it ties in with the MDM on those rooted and jailbroken devices. It does things that typical laptops, computers, they can do.
Right.
So again, it's just one of those features like cybersecurity is king. Is king with this with mobility, especially with more and more traffic coming from mobile endpoints. I think 75% of traffic towards the majority of websites nowadays comes from a mobile device. So the risks are only going to increase. So we need to do what we can to improve that.
So obviously we're looking very closely at mobile endpoint protection options and products out there and implementing those to see what's going to be the best fit. One thing I would like to mention on DMUC before we move on to DMCCS is there was a period of time where DMUC was basically primarily for users that were DEE email users, and that is no longer the case. We do non-DEE DMUC as well. So your organization's organic email that you use, we can arrange to configure it to point to that as well. So just wanted to mention that piece.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know how many are vendors or how many of our operational type agencies or services, but last summer, if you read any of the trade magazines, we went with we support non-DE. We have a customer currently right now. We've had for probably about 4 or 5 years that we support. They use their own exchange environment, and we connect to that, and we can do the same with other customers. Obviously, we prefer if you go to DE mail.mil. It's easy connection. There's no work for us, but we do understand there are some requirements where groups want to either maintain that identity or want to maintain their own exchange environment. And we've sat and briefed many of them about the architecture to connect. Everyone presents some different challenges. But kind of my mantra is, we want to vet out each of those challenges, and basically, we want to say yes until something makes us say no, with respect to kind of going outside the DEE type of requirement and base which we do.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Al. All right, so we're going to move to our next slide that's covering both DMCCS, our secret, and our TS. Classified mobile capabilities. And Greg, you want to take the lead for this?
Yeah, please. Since everybody did their bio, I'll give you a quick one here. 1976, I joined the Army and was enlisted. PFC, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, Signal. So I know what it's like driving through basics and going through all the mud and everything else, having been an enlisted soldier, and I was proud of it. 1981, I graduated from West Point. I was one of those straight from the Army to West Point. In 1988, I graduated from Cornell with a master's in laser physics. And I got assigned to Fort Monmouth, and that's where I got into communications. I'm one of the original team of 3 that started Mobility. Most people don't know this, but Mobility was originally under SharePoint depths. The three guys of us, well over, oh God, I lose count. I'm thinking 12 years ago. And to give you some background, I even helped write some of the DoD CIO charter that got mobility authorized. But the point I'm trying to bring up is I've seen a lot of change. I was here when we rolled out the first devices at this show. 6 years ago? 7 years ago now? We rolled out the original devices here. And we had a handful. Now we're up to 140,000. Now I want to give you a quick elevator speech on CFC. How many people here have ever heard of commercial solutions for classified? For those who haven't, basically it's NSA's approach to get rid of GOTS. Use COTS equipment cheaper, quicker, easier, updates faster, and it's also less costly. So CSFC is the commercial solution classified, and they have all sorts of capabilities. One of them is the mobile access capability package. It is the way to use commercial products to be able to do classified information on a mobile device. Okay? So right now, I just need to give you this real 30-second elevator speech to understand what's on this slide. CSFC works, mobile access capability package, because for a mobile device, there's two encrypted tunnels, an outer tunnel and an inner tunnel. The outer tunnel is a VPN, and the inner tunnel can be a VPN or TLS. Okay? TLS is at the application layer 7. So what happens is the cell phone goes across the cellular, across the internet, it comes into the IAP, and then it hits my gateway. The gateway's in 3 pieces: black, gray, red. Black, it's coming into the gateway, 2 levels of encryption. It hits the gray. The IPsec outer tunnel's taken off. The red, the inner tunnel's taken off, and it's the red enclave that connects to the rest of the enterprise network. And that's how we get our services, through that 2-layer tunnel.
Okay, so let's talk about our specific offerings.
You're right
secret.
here.
Yes.
So in a nutshell, we provide over 4,200 classified secret phones to DoD, non-DoD, foreign nationals deployed worldwide. I mean, our devices are in the hands of congressmen, as well as COCOM commanders and senior DoD personnel. Right now, we have the S7, which is the handheld smartphone, and we also have the Tab S3. So both of those, and they can do a call classified at the secret level for secret, and they also can do email. Now, I'm not going to get into the DAR. Major Lee is going to talk about data at rest. But right now, the email they can only read the email, and they can write email, and they can view the attachments, but they cannot create, edit an attachment. So it's a read-only capability, as well as write the email. Okay. Now, one of the things we're looking at doing is we're looking at a global gray. We're trying to consolidate. We're trying to save money. Everybody's trying to save money. So what we're looking at is consolidating into a single black enclave, a single gray, and then have multiple reds. Okay? Basically, we're talking about bringing together DMCC and DECTEC. And so we're trying to reduce our gateways down to a single gateway, or actually 2 gateways for COOP, but providing multiple different services on the back end. Okay? That reduces infrastructure, that reduces management, and reduces cost. The other thing is, one of the things we have to deal with is you got NIPRNet. They have their PKI and all their services. You got CIPRNet. They have all their PKI, they got services. There's nothing in the middle. There's no gray services. So right now, we have to provide our own gray services. As part of this global gray, DISA will be standing up a set of gray services that we can now use. We'll also reduce our cost. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and let Major Lee talk about the Windows 10 and the major enhancements we're doing there that will take this to the next level.
Thanks, Greg. So
DMCCS, we're trying to expand our portfolio, not just in terms of services and capabilities, as well as security. So there's two efforts going on, one led by Zach Salva, who's located in the back. He's actually leading the effort for the Windows 10 pilot devices, which is on Microsoft Service tablets. And just going to go through a quick highlight of some of the capabilities it does. It does secure voice, video chat. You could also access Intel Link from the browser. It has Adobe Reader to see attachments. Gives you the capability to also look at UVDS feeds, which is an awesome capability. And then, because of the current situation where we have these Android devices, the screen real estate's small. So we heard the mission partners' complaints, and we've been introducing a lot more tablet types of devices to have that sort of screen real estate. It also gives you, with this having this DAR capability, it's actually it gives us future capabilities in the future. Leveraging basically to have disconnected operations. Start drafting up your emails while disconnected from the internet or from access to the SIPR. And then another thing is to be able to use the soft certs on the devices. With that, it comes with two-factor authentication. On the Windows pilot devices, it's using a token as well as passcode. And then so I'm going to kind of shift towards what we're doing on the Android side, which is what I'm leading up. It's DAR capability. This one's more of a prototype, and we only have about 20 users. We're working with Northcom and Stratcom as our elite partners, getting their user feedback into what we're doing. So for the Android piece, it's, as Greg was mentioning, we are using Android S7s and Tab S3s to do this. With it, you'll have the capability of encrypting and decrypting emails, automated classification markings, as well as to be able to view and edit email attachments. So documents, PDFs, and things of that sort. With that said, another aspect is additional capabilities also will include, we'll discuss that in the next slide over, but from this, pretty much that's kind of covers a high level of where we're at. So
yeah, so it's exciting. We're taking what we currently have for DMCCS, and it has been just a way to make secure calls and use Outlook web access. And when you do not have connectivity, you can't use the phone. You can't use it for anything. And that's been kind of on the flip side of that, kind of a sweet spot, because then, when you don't have connectivity and you're not pinned in, there's just nothing going on with that phone. Part of that CSFC, MACP piece. By having the DAR solution, so now there's DAR CSFC capability package that we're building to, and you can work in a disconnected environment, and we can actually put data on the device now. So an email client, I think what Major Lee was about to allude to is that opens up a lot of possibilities in the future with maybe applications and different things for mission. So right now those are on, both the Win 10 and the Samsung DAR solution are on the operational system in use. One is in a prototype category, one is in a pilot category, but those are real things that will be enterprise offerings in the future. So, okay. All right, so I think we really...
cover TS real quick.
Okay, yeah, sorry, TS.
In a nutshell, for DAR, email, you can actually create, edit, store, and write documents. That's the real fun of it, because that's how you're able to actually be productive now. For TS, we'll make this relatively quick. We have 110 devices out there in non-DoD federal intelligence community, okay? It only does TS voice, not, so it can only do top secret. But the key is it can talk. The people who have these devices are the senior people in DoD, the COCOM commanders, the Secretary of Defense, his senior SESs. So these 110 devices are for mission essential use for emergencies, as well as communications.
Right, and it's TS collateral.
TS collateral,
not SCI. Right?
The one thing it can do is they can make a phone call to select TSSCI, intelligent community bridges, for a conference call, but the call on the IC side has to down select the TS level, okay? But you just don't get the phone. When you get the phone, you get global service desk support from DISA, and in the meantime, this initially was a pilot. We're in the process, in the planning stages right now, to make it a full-up enterprise service available to DoD and non-DoD federal.
Yeah, this can be ordered now through Storefront.
Through Storefront, yes.
You know, and like Greg had mentioned, it's primarily government communities that are working on continuity of government. Right. So the NLCC, the COG type of stuff that are the main users. So I'm going to move us forward, and we're going to look at back to DMUC. What's next? And I'll turn it back over to Al.
So what's next? So I ran out of space on this slide, but I tried to capture 4 kind of important bullets, right? We touched on them on the first slide. You know, the great thing about having a phone, you can reference it a lot as a show and tell, right? So what's next is mobile apps. You know, that's what we're about. I'll let Eugene touch a little bit about what's going forward. For those of you that have been in the space and have heard, you know, you ever heard the term federated app store? Some of that makes us cringe. You know, a DoD app store where everybody converges onto one. We've worked with some agencies that have app stores, trying to, you know, bring them or integrate them with our app store. A lot of things easier said than done, but we continue, and in some instances, especially a few years ago, we're kind of we're ahead of policy on a lot of this stuff too, and so because we're experiencing it for the first time. Eugene, if you will, kind of talk about.
Sure. And try to be cognizant of time so we have questions at the end here. But like I said, we really are focusing more on some of the capabilities that you'd want to see from the DoD side. I had forgotten about eVoIP and DTS. So we're really engaging at the development level with a lot of these PMs to get their mobile-facing capabilities started, and some of them will be coming out later this year.
Yeah, one thing I'll touch on is PII. You know, especially for those in the Army, right? So the Army Recruiting Command has about 11,000 of our devices. Something we would never even think about. You know, they take pictures a lot of potential recruits, right? I mean, anybody been a recruiter? And I never have, but I know it's a very demanding job and a lot of touches, right? You're touching a lot of potential recruits. This is their main data collection device. But how do we handle PII? How does it stored? What do they do with it? You know, these are things that potentially a few years ago we never anticipated. Mobile devices, as I alluded to earlier, you know, to become and I know Greg's part of the APL board or chair, but to become a supported product for DMUC, you know, a manufacturer has to take their device through NIAP testing, meet fit certification, and what have you. We, DMUC, or moreover the Mobility PMO, you know, don't have any say in that. So there's been multiple vendors taking their devices through. Some get through it, some don't. But we continue to support any device that, you know, makes it through and receives its NIAP certification along with FIPS. Also, as we try to look forward and we hear from our customer, you know, the potential of supporting a Mac OS. We know many of us, if you have MacBooks in your office, none of them are really managed per se, and so we have that potential capability. Be remiss not to say and mention kind of our MPEO, our Mission Partner Engagement Office. We've gone from 4 years ago, 20,000, 15,000 devices to today over 140. We're growing. We're going on an average of 2,000 to 3,000 customers a month, and so we've really, the MPEO has really positioned itself as DISA as that first initial contact, because fundamentally what you see here is probably half the office is out because we're sitting here, and so The MPEO really does a good job, one, feeding the requirements and or questions to us, but when customers do have a new requirement, it can come through and go through the right process. I'll talk a little bit about, or I'll ask Ethan to talk a little bit about what's coming up from a security perspective. But like we said on the slides, on the initial slide before, security is that thing that keeps us up almost 24/7, managing it, monitoring it, maintaining our ATO.
Security, it's the same concept that we have with desktops, right? Compliance, 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 and always trying to stay abreast of emerging threats, right? So it's a never-ending battle. We'll never get it perfect, but we can do what we can to make sure we protect the government's data, right? So, I mean, there's not much I can say. We keep the ATO accredited, and we just need to focus on our incident response and compliance actions. Because of time, it'll be the end of that for now.
Yeah.
But
the one thing I want to talk about just briefly, we want to use technology as much as possible. We don't want human intervention when it comes to security notification and or compliance or some sort of action we take. And so things like MEP are a critical enabler for us out there, especially as you heard me earlier talk about, we're scattered all over the world. Two things I'll say, kind of more, I know I mentioned a lot to our operational folks, services and agencies and COCOMs and what have you, but as a vendor, just past experience with me, being in this program is, for those that are interested, and I know we've talked to many from yesterday and today, putting your product in a NIPR environment, just giving it to the government, we're probably going to do things to it you haven't anticipated. Not necessarily do things to it, require things from it that you may not have anticipated. We have unique situations, and in that, we ask products to do things that may be stretching a portion of it. So understand how to operate in a NIPR environment. We're not just out in a commercial service. We have to put our products, into NIPR. So it's kind of a takeaway for the vendor community with that note.
No, so the only other thing that I would add before we move on to DMCC, what's next, is on the security side and probably the application side, and a lot of what we're doing is reciprocity. So if there's an organization that has built an app, there's a lot of challenges taking their developed standards and getting them approved by our AO. So we're really working to try to standardize and have a reciprocity. So people have pretty much the answers to the test for applications vetting as they're developing the application. So whenever it comes either already approved by their security, or when it comes to us for vetting, it flies right through the process. So I wanted to mention that piece. Okay, so on what's next on our classified mobility?
We're running out of time, so I'm going to just hit some highlights.
Make sure your mic is. Oh, it's there.
Everybody hear me now? Running out of time, I'll try to highlight this real quick. One of the things we're looking at is a third gateway. Right now we have two, but the next one we're looking at is putting overseas, because we have a lot of overseas users. Okay, I've already mentioned about your converged gateway with DMCS and DECTEC. The other thing, getting the gray CA, certificate authority automated. Right now it's a manual process, but that's all based on getting that DISA gray capability. The other thing is we are able to do 5 Eyes coalition dialing. When you get your phone, you get a little card. It tells you how to dial 21 different networks for coalition calling, as well as other standard, DoD networks. The other thing, real quick, I'm talking about this DMCC and DMCCS devices cannot connect directly to cellular. They have to use hotspots. A MiFi. So imagine you're a COCOM commander. You got a DMCCS phone and you got a TS phone. He's carrying 2 of these and 2 phones. Well, one thing we got approved: 1 hotspot, 2 devices. Try to make his job, make it a little easier for him. The other thing is we've also approved what we call a Cradle point cellular router. We did that for the Windows 10 for the DAR because of high bandwidth we expect for doing Windows 10 patches. So the nice thing about this cellular router from Cradle Point, we've got it authorized. They can hook it into Ethernet. So try to get a faster connection for downloading. In terms of DMCCTS, the only thing we're trying to do is increase our cybersecurity service provider continuous monitoring, because we have to take it to an enterprise solution. We're going to have to give this capability COOP and everything else to make it redundant and robust enough to be used. The only thing I want to talk about are future endeavors real quick. Some of the future endeavors we've been looking at is, right now, a DAR solution has to be done on right now a particular directory or file. It's only for that one application. And one of the things we're looking at, is some of the vendors are looking at, not us, is getting a phone certified where the entire phone is DAR. It's coming from the OEM itself. So the whole device would be able to be saving data and do everything we want to do, and not just one particular directory. One of the things we're researching right now is a dual classification phone. Secret and TS on the same phone. Now that's a ways out. We're just doing the research right now in FY19, FY20. So right now, depending on how the research goes, optimistic. Because understand, MACP's got 300 requirements you have to meet to pass. And we're looking at deployment in the outer years. And the other thing is an alternative Windows device outer tunnel to make it easier to use. And I'm done.
And you're out. Okay, so all these things that are mission partner needs, there's the multi-level classification. We see that requirement come through every once in a while. Definitely from a cybersecurity perspective, there's the multi-factor authentication, not just two-factor authentication, but there's all kinds of work in that area as well. So really making, like I mentioned at the very beginning, capabilities on the unclassified side and the classified side that meet user expectations. And the problem is we're all subject matter experts with mobility now. So this isn't just a government thing we're doing. In a way, as the government mobility program office, we're kind of lagging behind what people can do on their own personal phones. And so we're trying to catch up with that, but also balance and make sure that we're addressing the risk. So with that, demystifying DoD mobility. I also mentioned mobility equals increased information sharing. I really think that's what it comes down to. Like, where are we going in the future if we have these really philosophical conversations about will there be mobile devices and desktop devices? When you go into the office, you switch, or you have to leave one in a lockbox, or someday this will be the exact same thing. There will not be a difference. You're either in your office and you're on the network and you take that device out and you're mobile. I think that's where it's going. I think a lot of people do think that's where it's going. So we're just trying to update policies and get leadership thinking along those lines along the way. So with that, we can, there was the foot stomp for MPEO. I want to make one more of those. So Mission Partner Engagement Office. If you have a requirement for DoD mobility, it needs to not just talk to one of us and not just an email to me or phone call. We need to put it through the actual process so we can actually have an official requirement and have funding and resources to support that. So that's my plug for that piece, because we want to do it, but we need to do it officially. So with that, I'd like to open it up for some question and answer.
I guess first I want to say thanks, Mark, for putting the panel together and for all of you being here to be forthcoming with information for industry. It's very valuable.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The question I have is about a sources sought RFI that you released, I think in 2017, for Mobility Enterprise Services Unclassified. Can you describe, maybe the question's really for you, Al, how does this relate to the DMUC that you were talking about earlier? Where are you in the process of identifying an actual target date for when you think you'll do acquisition for an RFP, and maybe what kind of vehicle would you anticipate pursuing that on?
Yeah. So the first one's easy, right? So I wasn't here in 2017, so no, I'm just kidding you. So Hey, so good question, right? Because as people hear MAJ, right, they think MAJ, DMUC, how does it relate, right? So let's just make it real simple. MAJ is basically the follow-on to our integration contract now. That's the name of it. We call it MAJ. Kind of, I think we have MESC out there now, and MAJ is the name we're giving it. Doesn't change the DMUC device. It's just the contract vehicle. It's our integration and engineering contract. That's it. So I think right now, we did a pre-solicitation conference.
We had an industry day.
Huh?
We had the industry day.
Pre-solicitation conference about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I believe, and I'll shoot it over to Frank, who kind of manages our contracts as the deputy. I know that there's a draft PWS sitting out there on Fez BizOps. I know we've done Q&A, and I believe the right answer, Frank, is we're intending to release the final PWS, fourth quarter this FY.
Very good, Al. So we did have a pre-solicitation conference for MAJ a couple of weeks ago. We are finalizing the requirement. There was a draft RFP that was put out for comments. We're incorporating those comments in. And we are looking for a fourth quarter RFP release from MAJ. We have not determined specifically what vehicle we will use, but just for general information, the way the process works, we'll look at internal vehicles, then we'll move to department vehicles, and then we would move out to greater government vehicles, and then maybe to full and open. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's perfect. And a follow-up to it is, within that space, what is the existing telecommunications expense management system that's part of this, and how, what's your vision for that?
So TEMA is being addressed in the current Spiral 3 contracts that we leverage through the department. So it will not be a requirement in MAJ.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next question.
With regards to app vetting, would you have any guidance for development shops that may be planning managed apps? What kind of security requirements can we be looking at to make sure that we're smooth on your app vetting process as well?
Absolutely. So per a memo that came out in 2017, I believe October, from the DoD CIO, we're following the NIAP protection profile for application software, and 1.3 just came out. We're looking at that version. There's not a lot of changes between 1.2 and 1.3, but start there. We do have additional requirements from our AO to look at specific domains in your code. So please be cognizant of the libraries that you're using. We don't have recommendations of what libraries to use, but essentially in the scanning that we do, if we find that the libraries and other snippets that you're using, if they are housed or reaching out OCONUS anywhere, it can draw red flags. So those are if you're looking at those two things, then you're probably very good.
I would recommend you contact. If anyone is developing and wants to make sure that they're developing in alignment with what would be approved, contact our office. We can help with that and point you in the right direction for the standards that we're looking at.
Thank you.
So one more thing. Sorry. So those domains that they're talking about in those libraries, some of them it's easy to miss. Developers miss them all the time because they're native to those libraries. So if it's in your best interest to make sure you really look into that and find them, just so you're not surprised when we give you when Eugene's team gives you the report, because eventually those come to me for analysis, and then we get something to our AO. So it'll save you guys time and effort later on in the future.
Great. Thank you very much.
Steve Harvey, Mobile Iron. What's the plan for IoT wearables? I mean, probably half the audience here has them on.
Right. So a lot of those types of things, and I'm sure there's some good answers and opinions here. I'll let them do that. But there are probably a lot of topics that are really related to policy changes that need to take place, or policies getting caught up with mobility and wireless and things like that. So we do struggle with that, but the neat thing is we're in a pretty unique position to influence changes with that, and we're already seeing that happen. But Eugene or anybody, do you have any?
Yeah, I was going to say, so Ethan and I are definitely taking a look at that. IoT really touches with the mobile space, usually through applications, and then Ethan as the information security lead. As Mark said, generally speaking, from that perspective, the problem is really policy and getting through changes in the mindset of what has been established as the rule and how that doesn't really fit in the current space today with the challenges of integrating that sort of technology. So definitely on the radar. I couldn't really give you exactly what kind of priority we have on that. Clearly, it's not even on the slide. Once we get past PAI and PHI, medical devices are very much in that IoT space. So we'll definitely be getting into that space next.
So it's important to note for both app developers and IoT and these mobile devices, medical devices, that you know any regulatory commission that actually affects those. For medical devices, for instance, the FDA, they regulate anything that touches them. So apps do count in that aspect. So for mobile IoT, medical devices, it's good to make sure you know what's regulating them and come to us prepared with that to save your guys time and effort and money.
From a policy standpoint, I'm part of the DoD CIO Commercial Mobile Device Working Group, and we've had some discussions up there. They're trying. What's happened? Most people don't realize it. IEEE, as of a little more than 2 months ago, started actual groups to start looking at IoT standards. That's one of the things holding up DoD CIO is trying to come up with a security standard, a management standard, and everything else. So they're looking at what's happening in industry to come up with an actual IoT standard and then incorporate that into some level of policy. So there's multiple directions ongoing right now, and the industry is heading in the right direction. Again, we're waiting for industry.
So a lot of the interest across a wide spectrum of capabilities are not technical problems for us. You know, when my 11-year-old is FaceTiming with his friends in the back of the car while we're driving somewhere, why can't we do more like that? Well, there's a lot of policy that we have to go through. So, any other questions? Okay.
Hi, Sal Sarabia from Rycom Labs. You mentioned there was 140,000 users of these devices, and you're growing 2,000 to 3,000 per month. Are all of those through CFFC and NIAP programs? All those things went through those types of validations?
Let me, I got my hand in a lot of things. I'm the DoD Mobility APO manager. The mobile devices have to go through NIAP because we agreed on that a long time ago, so they don't have to go through JITIC through the APL process. So we use NIAP as a way to validate the security of the phone itself, the security boundary, and being able to wipe data when you make sure there's no personal or other information. When you wipe a phone, factory reset, it works. So for mobile devices, they have to go through. For MDMs, they have to go through the NIAP process. For CSFC, there's a lot of things in CSFC components list that have to go through. Voice over IP apps, the voice over IP call managers, that's probably where you're getting at. They have to go through the NIAP, but they also have to go through the CFC selections. If you go to the CFC components list for voice over IP or SIP servers, up above there's a CFC selection. In the NIAP protection profile, there are things requirements and there are thing objectives. What the CFC selections do tell you which of the objectives are now required. So if you go to the CFC components list and go find your category and look at CFC selections, it will tell you what you have to meet in NIAP to be able to get on the CFC list too.
Right. Short answer, yes, it has to be on the approved products list. All of 140,000.
For CSFC, it doesn't have to go on the approved products list, but you still have to go through NIAP. If you want to get on the APL, then you have to go through the NIAP anyway and get a STIG.
All right, next question.
So I have a burning question about this, so I'm just going to say it now because it's going through my mind. I could ask one person, but since everybody is here,
Sure.
might as well get some answers. So there's always been a challenge for the reservists to bridge the communication. Since the inception of the mobility program, what have you developed capabilities in providing, offering communication or device to the reservists that spread out all over places? Like currently, a unit in the Air Force Reserve, they've been using WhatsApp, and now with the WhatsApp being, hacked, what capabilities can you provide or offer?
Okay, so is your question about what types of communications apps can we standardize on across?
Yeah, other than the WhatsApp.
Right.
Is there any development on that, on what's next to your
Right, so
agenda?
again, our team doesn't actually develop applications, and we say that we did go out and do the digital signing, but our mission space is not to develop applications. We work with the other PMs across the DoD to bring their capabilities out into the field. And so from a communications perspective, we've been working with the DCS PM, who is working on a chat and presence application, and eventually we'll also work on their collaboration capability as well. GVS is also working on a video service. The eVoIP PM is working on a voice over IP service. And I guess depending on how you classify communication, there are different storage capabilities being looked at as well,
Right.
for example, by Mill Drive.
There's a portal, Army and the Air Force have a portal. However, Reserve needs to have their CAC device in order for them to get into this website. I know it's for protection, but
So are you talking like a NIPR, an access
yeah,
on NIPR?
yeah.
That's where and so we have reservists and National Guards, using DMUC all over the country. That's where you can use your purebred credential, using the browser through VPN to access, NIPR sites, to log in with your, with your cert. And, we have many customers doing that. There's a lot of unique sites. And if it supports the right credentialing, you can authenticate that way.
Right. So sometimes, I know you had a burning question about this, but maybe it's because you have a very significant need and you just need to communicate that to DISA, and we can look at it as maybe a requirement, something we need to make sure we address. I really like where you're going with the standardization across different parts of DoD with applications and communications capability. I mean, we do need to make sure that we're looking at solutions that can be adopted widespread.
Right, and I understand it's also part of the budget that reservists cannot bring their government laptop to their home,
right,
in order for them to communicate.
We gotta go.
Okay. Any other last questions? I think we're just about good on time. All right. Well, thank you for your time this morning.
Yeah, because I know they cut off.
What do I do?
I tried to get it. I did this last minute. I couldn't get a ticket.
Yeah.